Tonight, breaking news on the pandemic laws as Daniel Andrews hits back at protesters targeting his family.
There are some people who are threatening me, they're threatening my family.
COVID restrictions set to go. Retailers bracing for a backlash over vaccine rules. Major developments in the William Tyrrell mystery. His foster parents charged with assaulting a different child. A heartbreaking plea over the death of a young singer. A disgraced politician arrested over a multi-million-dollar migration fraud. And hidden costs as international travel returns.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Peter Mitchell starts now.
Good evening. The Andrews government has been thrown into crisis with controversial pandemic laws in doubt. Blake Johnson has the details from Parliament House. And Blake, the laws are facing a last-minute threat.
From none other than Adam Somyurek. Pete, the disgraced former Labor MP, could show up at the last minute tomorrow to vote on this legislation after providing his vaccine status just today. He hasn't been in Parliament all year, and it's not known publicly just which way Mr Somyurek might vote if he does vote. But if he votes against it, this legislation in the upper house is dead, and that is an enormous headache for the Andrews government. You can imagine the frantic phone calls going on tonight. As far as the protests go on the steps of Parliament House, they are still going tonight, although a little bit more subdued compared to yesterday. A crowd of around 150 still there tonight singing songs, with about 60 police officers flanking them. I've spoken to a few businesses on Spring Street. They say they had a ripper day of trade yesterday, lots of cash taken. The protesters apparently telling them they didn't want to be tracked by using their credit card. But with big protests planned on Saturday, a lot of these businesses are staying shut, fearing what the crowd might do. Pete?
Blake Johnson on Spring Street, thank you. Daniel Andrews and his wife have hit out at protesters over vile threats targeting their family in the backlash over the pandemic laws. The Premier sent a blunt message and vowed to stand his ground.
Hundreds gathered on the steps of Parliament for a third straight night. The crowd was more subdued, but by morning the entrance was fortified as inside the Premier hit back.
There are some people who are threatening me, they're threatening my family. They are essentially attacking the safety of my family. Be really clear and hear this message. I will not be deterred from the work I'm doing to keep every family safe.
His wife Catherine also called out bad behaviour. We have received so many beautiful messages today. We are reminded that the light shines in the darkness and the darkness will not overcome it.
Violent imagery, violent words leads to violence against people. It's inevitable. You can't stay silent about this stuff.
James Molino's wife is speaking up too. If that was about my husband, I'd be calling the police to put a stop to it. In what world is it okay for Kath and the kids to have to stand by and watch this as if everything is okay? This is so far over the line, it's ridiculous.
I look forward to the day I get to see you dance on the end of a rope, you evil little bastard.
Liberal MPs Craig Ondarchi, Nick Wakeling, Bernie Finn and Roma Britnell all mixed with protesters yesterday, a day after they'd pretended to hang the Premier.
The fact that they've spent their time sucking up to extremists, beholden to anti-vaxxers, beholden to Nazis and neo-Nazis, beholden to people who think gallows...
Premier will resume his seat. Premier will resume his seat.
Last time around, Matthew Guy, associated with mobsters. This time, he's sidled up to far-right extremists and anti-vaxxers.
You have people who turn up to demonstrations who overshadow some people's legitimate concerns. There are many Victorians who have got a legitimate concern about the government's pandemic bill. Most of them aren't on the steps of Parliament.
Chanel Vella, 7 News.
The last of our restrictions could ease as soon as Friday. Melina Saris has tonight's developments. And Melina, one industry expert is calling it early.
Mitch, Tim Piper from the Australian Industry Group has revealed he's been in high-level discussions with the government, which could pull the trigger before the weekend.
I think there's going to be discussions tonight and tomorrow between the CHO, the Chief Health Officer, and indeed the Cabinet. And if we can get to that 90%, which they're thinking is quite possible, then we may well be out of this lockdown by Friday.
It means a flashpoint for vaccines is looming at major shopping centres right across Victoria. Very soon, if you haven't had the jab, you simply won't be allowed in. Christmas is coming.
What would you like Santa to bring you for Christmas, darling?
But so too are rules banning unvaccinated Victorians from shopping centres.
Naturally, that does create some tension and some apprehension. So there are concerns as to how smoothly that will flow.
Retail experts fear a backlash from shoppers who have so far been free to shop whether they've had the jab or not.
It's regrettable that you have a stop-start situation in Victoria. However, retailers are on board and will be fully compliant with that.
New South Wales opted to ban unvaccinated shoppers until the state hits 95% double dose next month. Victoria has done the opposite and won't enforce a ban until after our 90% milestone.
We think with people doing the right thing, and we're seeing that in hospitality, we're seeing that in offices, that'll transpose really nicely to retail as well.
It'll be an intense time for retailers. Many make 2/3 of their profits leading up to Christmas. Businesses face fines of between $1,000 and $27,000 if they're caught flouting COVID-safe requirements.
Be respectful, be kind, be patient and shop early.
While retail rules are coming in, most other restrictions will come off, including masks indoors. They'll only need to be worn on public transport and in hospitals. Vaccinated workers can also return to the office.
That's why we're open, and it's why we're going to stay open, and it's why Christmas is going to be, basically a normal gathering of family and friends.
Victoria recorded 996 new cases today and 9 more deaths. Melina Saris, 7 News.
There has been a major development in the William Tyrrell disappearance. As police spent a third day searching bushland, detectives have charged the boy's foster parents in relation to another child. Robert Ovadia is live in Kendall this evening, and Rob, this is a major moment in the investigation.
Good evening, Peter. You said it, a major moment, and right now you can't help but think there is an avalanche of pressure descending on the foster parents, and tonight we can exclusively reveal that they have sacked their lawyers, having walked into the lawyer's office this afternoon in the Sydney CBD to be told that they had each been charged, a 56-year-old woman, 54-year-old man, with the common assault of a child, and we cannot identify that child for legal reasons. An onslaught of forensics police hope will transform theory into fact. Where William Tyrrell might have died, how his body was taken, where it was taken to, and who may have taken him.
Are you surprised about this investigation going this way now?
No response from William Tyrrell's foster mother, who visited her lawyer today. Late this afternoon, we learnt it was because police had just charged her and William's foster father with the alleged assaults not of William, but another child. She has become the intense focus of Strikeforce Roseanne.
The investigation is part of the dogged determination of investigators, and we'll leave no stone unturned.
Almost literally, the Federal Police Forensics Imagery and Geomatics team is here mapping the ground. More excavators are on site, and so are cadaver dogs. Mid-afternoon, detectives thought they had found something. It was compared to a sample of a Spider-Man suit, but quickly discounted. Also being examined as potential evidence is a car that belonged to William's now deceased foster grandmother when he disappeared from her Kendall home. Investigators are spraying the boot with the chemical luminol, just as they did the garden bed overnight at 48 Benaroon Drive, Kendall. It detects blood.
They're looking at whether William may have fallen off the balcony. If that had happened, there's likely to be a significant blood loss, and that would show up even years later.
William Tyrrell's biological family chose not to speak on camera today. They told us they had been advised not to, but they did add they hope these recent developments will provide answers for them they have waited 7 years to discover. In Kendall, Robert Ovadia, 7 News.
A grieving father needs the public's help to find the men who shot dead his son in front of his friends at his Sunshine North home. Detectives say the rising rap artist was killed in a targeted attack.
distraught parents.
I feel broken. I am a Christian and therefore inclined to forgive. But I can only forgive once I know the whole truth.
Detectives also left with more questions than answers.
Why is almost always the key. From why generally comes the who, the what, the when, the where and the how.
Aspiring rapper Chris Javier Carre was ambushed by a gang and gunned down in front of his friends at his home in August.
This was clearly a targeted attack. The focus of the offenders that night was Chris, and their aim was to kill him.
These are the images of two potential suspects.
And those that shot Chris will have told somebody about it, what their plan was, why they're doing it.
The 24-year-old's father admits his son got caught up in the wrong crowd, but didn't deserve to be killed.
I can't even sleep. I'm constantly wondering if they are coming for my other sons. And it's very heavy.
Just 3 days before the fatal shooting, an altercation occurred at this home between the victim and an unknown group. Homicide detectives are now probing if this was the motive behind the murder.
They used a firearm on a defenceless human being.
So whoever did it, please come forward.
Cassie Zervos, 7 News.
Australian wages are beginning to return to pre-pandemic levels. Incomes rose 0.6% nationally in the September quarter and are up 2.2% so far this year. New figures from the Bureau of Statistics reveal science and technology industries saw the highest growth despite extended lockdowns. Former union boss and federal Labor MP Craig Thomson is behind bars tonight after being arrested on fresh fraud charges. Leonie Ryan is in the New South Wales town of Gosford tonight. And Leonie, these are serious charges.
They certainly are, Peter, and currently Craig Thomson is being held in the cells in the police station here behind me this evening. Now, a number of federal police officers spent hours raiding a number of properties, including at his home at Terrigal on the Central Coast, where officers could be seen carrying evidence bags and loading them into their vehicles. The disgraced former MP is accused of arranging more than 130 fake visa applications for overseas farm labourers and hospitality workers. It's alleged he gained more than $2 million from the scheme. If convicted, he faces a maximum 10 years behind bars. Now, 57-year-old Thomson, he is no stranger to controversy. Only recently he was served with an AVO to protect his ex-wife, and in 2014 he was convicted of misusing union members' funds while head of the Health Services Union. Now, Peter, it's expected on these latest charges he'll face Gosford Local Court tomorrow.
Leonie Ryan in Gosford, thank you. Building giant Privium Homes has officially collapsed. As many as 160 projects across the country are in limbo after the Queensland-based company suddenly shut down operations. Administrators are working with state regulators on solutions for clients. Many contractors have also been left with unpaid bills. A newly renovated home has gone up in flames in Melbourne's west. Neighbours say they heard loud explosions that seemed to come from upstairs. The smoke was so thick they had to be treated by paramedics.
It was within 5 minutes, the house was completely on fire. Flames everywhere, black smoke heading towards the back.
The owners were not home but soon returned to find their Sunshine West house destroyed. It's not yet clear what started the blaze. Daniel Andrews has closed a loophole that could have allowed unvaccinated tennis stars a backdoor entry into Victoria. It follows an about-face from Nick Kyrgios after he called for the Australian Open to be cancelled.
It's reported Tennis Australia examined flying those like Novak Djokovic who refused to declare vaccination status and unvaccinated players into Sydney for quarantine and lead-up tournaments. Then on to Melbourne. The Premier unimpressed.
Staff and fans won't be getting into that precinct unless they're vaccinated, and neither should players. I think that Tennis Australia are in no doubt about the position the government's taken.
A hard line welcomed by experts.
I congratulate Victoria on standing firm.
Nick Kyrgios has broken his own serve on the Open.
To say that I'd want the Australian Open cancelled, I think that was the sentence that got taken out of context.
A backtrack after this yesterday.
I don't think the Oz Open should go ahead, in my opinion. Just for the people of Melbourne, you got to send a message.
And a superstar of the game has entered into the vaccination debate, making his position very clear. Rafa Nadal insists he is sympathetic to those who don't want the jab.
Pero desde mi punto de vista, cuando vivimos situaciones y momentos como los que estamos viviendo, me parece una postura un pelín egoísta.
Nick McCallum, 7 News.
Champion jockey Jamie Carr has had her suspension reduced over an Airbnb party that breached COVID rules. The Supreme Court ruled Carr was denied procedural fairness, striking 2 months off her 5-month ban from racing. The jockey posted to social media saying she's very happy with the outcome and it's now time to move forward. Carr can resume riding in 9 days. The fight is on for a spot in the first Ashes test. Tim Watson, the Australian squad, has been named.
Mitch, Usman Khawaja and Travis Head have a battle on their hands to be there at the Gabba. Khawaja is back in the fold after 2 years in the doldrums, while Will Pekoski's Ashes hopes have been dashed. Details coming up. Plus, Demons skipper Max Gawn takes his talents to the basketball court. And Mitch, the Kangaroos have had another win. Exclusive details on the way.
OK, Tim, we'll see you then. Thank you very much. Police could be forced to pay compensation over the Burke Street death of cafe owner Sisto Malaspina. Details are next on 7 News. Also, help catch an arsonist in Melbourne's west. Devastation after a coordinated terrorist attack. Britney Spears breaks her silence on her toxic relationship with her dad. And later, the new hidden costs of an international holiday.
It can add up, so make sure you budget for them.
Police are trying to figure out why a car was deliberately set on fire in an Altona North driveway. The arsonist was caught on a security camera setting the car ablaze on Macintosh Road just before midnight on August the 8th.
The offender exited the vehicle and approached the victim's vehicle, which was parked in a driveway at that address, and poured accelerant on her vehicle.
Detectives believe the getaway car was a dark-coloured Ford Focus. Victoria Police may be forced to pay compensation to the family of Burke Street terror victim Sisto Malaspina and other victims of the attack. Lawyers claim police could have stopped the 2018 rampage but failed to act.
Sisto Malaspina's family believes he would still be alive if not for the negligence of Victoria Police. The restaurateur's wife and son are taking legal action, along with Rodney Patterson, who survived the Burke Street attack, and the mother of an injured security guard.
They are bringing this claim because they don't want this to happen to anybody else, and also they want to be compensated for the injuries that they have suffered.
Mr Malaspina was stabbed to death by Hassan Khalif Shaya Ali after he set his ute alight in November 2018. The 30-year-old was inspired by ISIS and was wanted by counter-terror police.
Despite that classification, they failed to appropriately monitor him given the risk that he posed. There were numerous opportunities where they could have apprehended him, and they didn't.
Each victim and family member will be assessed for PTSD. Victoria Police has 12 months to respond, but it's hoped it can be settled out of court before them to spare them any trauma of having to give evidence. A devastating attack with everlasting grief for Mrs Malaspina.
Her and Sisto were planning to travel and enjoy their retirement, and he's no longer around to do that. She basically sees no real point in going on.
Tegan Dolling, 7 News.
Queensland is making a new pitch to lure young Victorian workers to the Sunshine State. Just like Victoria, Queensland is desperately short of workers in hospitality and tourism.
We'll also target students, inviting them to take a gap year to work in Paradise.
Victorians making the move north can get a $1,500 cash bonus through the Work in Paradise campaign. A coordinated suicide attack in Uganda's capital, Kampala, has left 3 people dead and dozens of others injured. Bombers on motorbikes blew themselves up within minutes of each other near the parliament and police headquarters. Islamic State says it was behind the blasts. And Charles and Camilla have embarked on their first overseas tour in 2 years, visiting Jordan and Egypt.
It is always very special indeed to come back to Jordan. I'm sorry this time it's 19 months late.
The Prince called his mother before he left the UK to make sure the tour could still go ahead. Britney Spears has broken her silence after a judge ended her father's rule over her finances and her life. The 39-year-old told fans she's enjoying new freedoms, such as access to money, and hinted she may do an interview with Oprah.
Britney Spears is celebrating the end of her family having control over her life for 13 years.
It's a really long time to be in a situation you don't want to be in.
Now at 39, she's regaining her independence.
And being able to have the keys to my car and being able to be independent and feel like a woman and owning an ATM card, seeing cash for the first time.
The conservatorship stripped the pop sensation of the right to make her own financial and medical decisions and gave control of her estate to her father, Jamie Spears. The arrangement was finally lifted last week after she testified it was abusive.
I'm not here to be a victim. I lived with victims my whole life as a child. That's why I got out of my house and I worked for 20 years.
Spears told fans she wants to be an advocate for the disabled.
I'm a very strong woman, so I can only imagine what the system has done to those people.
She hinted at a tell-all interview with Oprah Winfrey and credited fans behind the Free Britney movement with saving her life.
You guys rock. Honestly, my voice was muted and threatened for so long.
But not anymore. Emma O'Sullivan, 7 News.
Back home now, and Jane Bunn joins us. Jane, it feels like spring is returning.
Mitch, today was the changeover day. We're going from cold and grey to warm and windy. This morning it was still cool and grey, but once the sun came out, finally it turned quite pleasant. And then we had high cloud thicken overhead. That is a sign of some new weather on the way. Tomorrow we're warm and windy. The Mallee is under total fire ban, the first of the season. There's also the risk of thunderstorms. I'll have the full details after sport, Mitch.
See you then. Thank you very much, Jane. The Bank of Mum and Dad is now one of the nation's biggest lenders, but there are warnings. Next, what everyone should know about parental loans. Also, a family rescued after a holiday ordeal, stranded in the desert for 5 days. An extraordinary Alzheimer's breakthrough in the form of a nasal vaccine. And why protesters set up their own runway in the Bourke Street Mall. The inquest into Victoria's deadliest COVID cluster has heard health authorities dealing with the St Basil's outbreak were also monitoring cases at more than 100 other aged care homes. A federal health department official said a dozen homes were losing staff every day, resulting in a crippling sector-wide shortage. Angry workers have made a fashion statement in a protest outside David Jones as part of their dispute with Country Road. They staged a mock parade to showcase their concerns.
The company did not want to shut the warehouse down to keep it safe.
The workers want a pay rise of roughly $1.50 an hour, but have only been offered a 50-cent increase. Country Road has accused the union of bullying tactics. A family of 4 is on their way home tonight after an ordeal in the outback. They were rescued after spending a week in the middle of nowhere in remote South Australia when their camper van became bogged.
Out of the soft mud onto harder ground.
It's been emotional.
Sweet relief for the Zavros family after being stranded for 5 days in remote desert.
After the first couple of days, we sort of realised we wanted to get out of there pretty quick.
In a truck they built themselves, Ori, Lindsay, Zane and Zoe have tackled some of Australia's harshest landscapes, but nothing could prepare them for this. Rare desert rain soaking the perennially dry Simpson, cutting off roads, facing weeks of isolation, bogged in a hot swamp.
Looking like it was going to be a bit sketchy.
The family set off an emergency beacon around 10 o'clock last Friday, northwest of Udnadatta. On Sunday, emergency supplies were airdropped, including a satellite phone. Yesterday afternoon, a police helicopter winched the family to safety, flying them to Kubapiti. Arriving at Adelaide Airport this afternoon, the family still thanking their newest heroes.
Thank you so much to them and the search and rescue team. Amazing.
But still, no regrets, they say. Just another story from the road. Now, time for some amenities.
Crack a cold beer and a champagne. And
I want to wash my hair.
The next mission, retrieve the truck before hitting the road home. Tom Saker, 7 News.
Violence has erupted at the border of Poland and Belarus after thousands of migrants made a chaotic attempt to enter the EU. Polish guards were pelted with rocks, bottles and logs. Water cannon were eventually used to turn the asylum seekers back. And North Korea's elusive leader, Kim Jong-un, has made his first public appearance in over a month. State media released photographs of the fitter-looking president visiting a new city being built near the border with China. A groundbreaking human trial is getting underway for a nasal vaccine for Alzheimer's disease. Scientists believe it could reverse memory loss and prevent the debilitating condition altogether.
Clutching in his hands the hopes of millions of Alzheimer's sufferers.
Potentially, it could be something that could be a treatment for people with the disease. And even more important, it could be something to prevent people from ever getting the disease.
20 years, that's how long Dr. Howard Weiner has spent researching an Alzheimer's vaccine, now one step closer to reality.
So that we give this nasal vaccine, the immune system gets activated, the cells go into the brain, and clear out the amyloid and fight against the disease.
The Boston doctor is heading up the vaccine trial to prevent and slow the disease progression.
Alzheimer's disease is a terminal disease that has no resolution.
Stalling it particularly critical for those living with early onset.
Getting an extra year or 2 years from a drug that may slow down the progression of the disease is phenomenal.
The first human trial gets underway next month. Over 6 months, 16 patients with mild signs of the disease will receive 2 doses a week apart. It's been a year of breakthroughs in Alzheimer's research. In June, America approved the use of a drug to slow the progression of the disease. This vaccine, doctors hope, will be ready by 2026. In the United States, Ashley Mullaney, 7 News.
Melbourne's property prices continue to be at record highs, forcing more first home buyers to borrow from the bank of mum and dad. We can reveal tonight the legal advice you need to know to protect your money and avoid family feuds.
Tony Fegan's 2 sons are struggling to break into the booming property market.
We could gift one of the houses to the boys when we're close to retirement, or loan them the money for it.
Very similar to just going to the bank to get a loan, just less strings attached.
It's called the Bank of Mum and Dad, and it's now the 9th largest lender in the country.
For the parents, they've got to make sure that they don't let emotion overtake things, that they treat it like a business agreement.
So before stumping up the cash, parents should make clear if it's a gift or a loan.
Just to make it a little bit more formal, just to make sure it's not, as Dad said, just a handshake.
Australian family lawyers have started an Asset Protect service, a legal document for parents to set the repayment amount if there's an interest fee and the total due date.
And if you don't have the formalised documents done properly, then a court might not even say, well, this loan is void for uncertainty. This agreement won't be enforced.
Lawyers also recommend speaking with a financial advisor first to work out if parents can afford to help and how much they should offer.
You don't want this to become a problem in the future where relationships are hurt because there was some uncertainty.
And ensure there's no love lost. Crystal Etherington, 7 News.
The return of international travel comes with new hidden costs and hassles. Details are next on 7 News. Also, a popular snack recalled over listeria fears and a multi-million-dollar plan to restore St Kilda Pier. A 25-year-old man has suffered serious injuries after his four-wheel drive collided with a tow truck in Melbourne's west this morning. The other driver was assessed by paramedics but did not need further treatment. One of Melbourne's top bayside attractions is set to be transformed. A multi-million-dollar facelift will see St Kilda Pier extended with a curved design stretching 450 metres into the bay. There'll be a wider and more accessible walkway and a new penguin viewing platform. Work will begin early next year. The production of Coffin Bay oysters is on hold as South Australian authorities investigate links to a gastro outbreak. Dozens of cases have been reported across Australia, including several in Victoria. As a precaution, the oyster production areas have been closed until early next week. International borders are reopening, but travellers are being warned to be ready for hassles and hidden costs. COVID tests before and after takeoff, isolation rules and insurance can all add hundreds of dollars to the holiday bill.
Overseas holidays are back on the board, but they're no longer as simple as getting up and away.
There's a fair bit more paperwork to do, so carry it with you, do the research.
Prior to takeoff, travellers must download an international vaccination certificate. Passengers aged over 12 are required to obtain a negative PCR test up to 3 days prior to departure. The pre-flight test is not covered by Medicare and costs approximately $150.
You're likely to need 2, potentially 3 on any of your trips, so it can add up, so make sure you budget for that.
Last week, Singapore welcomed back fully vaccinated Australians. For a quarantine-free trip, travellers must apply for a vaccinated travel lane pass and a profile on the Safe Travel Concierge website, where they can book a second PCR test upon arrival at Changi Airport for $160. Rather than heading straight to the pool, they need to isolate in their hotel room until they receive a negative result. Tourists must have travel insurance for potential COVID-19 related medical treatment costs with a minimum coverage of $30,000.
Insurance is more important than ever before. Make sure you read the T's and C's.
Fiji will say bulla to Aussies from December 1. Holidaymakers must pre-book 3 nights at an approved accommodation, get a rapid test 48 hours after arrival, that's around $22 Australian each, then undergo another PCR test costing $220 before heading home. These lab tests may also be required to take a trip in our own backyard, in states such as Queensland and Tasmania.
Domestically, it doesn't make any sense. Internationally, it's just going to be a thing you have to do for the next few months.
Travel industry and tourism leaders are calling on the state and federal governments to scrap the use of expensive PCR tests for domestic travel, concerned the significant cost could deter families from holidaying interstate.
If travellers have got to pay for it and you're a family of 4, your 4 tests may cost more than the Jetstar tickets to get there.
Jade Vincent, 7 News.
In finance news, time to check the markets now. The ASX 200 closed 50 points lower at under 7,370. Stocks were down across the big banks today. The Commonwealth dropped $8.69 and the Australian dollar currently buying 72.80 US cents. Melbourne Fashion Week is heading underwater tonight. Models are surrounded by sea life as the festival showcases not just fashion, but our amazing city as well. And we'll cross live a little later on 7 News. Popular snacks have been recalled from supermarkets over contamination fears. 2 good-to-go varieties containing tasty cheese and cabanossi or mild salami have been stripped from shelves in Woolworths and IGA stores. They could contain listeria, which can cause illness in pregnant women, the elderly and people with low immunity. Sport is next with Tim Watson and Tim. Usman Khawaja's 2-year exile is over.
It is, Mitch, but the battle has just begun as a shootout looms. Next, who he's up against for a spot in the Test side at the Gabba. Why Max Gawn in the bad books as the Roos score another big coup. A blow for the Socceroos and their road to the World Cup. And Steph Curry closing in on an all-time NBA record. Welcome back. Aussie selectors have taken a major step towards finalising the 11 for the opening Ashes test. They're determined to keep England guessing until as late as possible as one of our brightest young stars continues to search for answers.
As he re-emerges from the Aussie cricket wilderness, Usman Khawaja's first priority is finding his baggy green.
It's somewhere in the house. Hard to find it. Maybe I reckon Aisha might have placed it somewhere. She seems to take my baggies and starts chucking it around.
Family life has translated to a mountain of domestic runs, with Marcus Harris all but a lock to partner David Warner. It leaves Khawaja and Travis Head, both named in the 15-man squad, to fight it out for the number 5 spot.
We're leaning towards one of them.
It's been 2 years since Khawaja was part of Justin Langer's Aussie setup.
What are you worried about then?
I'm worried about harping too much on negative.
What, don't get out?
Everyone thought that I probably, didn't get along with him, or I hated him, or we had arguments. It wasn't the case at all. It was quite the opposite.
Langer's ultra-controlling style, now a thing of the past. Australia's victorious T20 stars, the last of which arrived back home in Melbourne last night, are proof a more relaxed reign is the way forward.
Being a little bit more hands-off and delegating a bit more was excellent. The players took some real ownership of their own games and their own preparation.
Jai Richardson's compelling Shield form enough to earn him an Ashes spot and could edge out Mitchell Starc at the Gabba. No place for Mitch Marsh, who was named in the Australia A squad. The next 21 days vital to get our test-starved stars ready for a long summer with the red ball.
I think I've played four tests in the last kind of 18 months.
Unfortunately for Will Pucovski, his future remains clouded. He's still suffering symptoms after a 10th concussion. He's unlikely to play any part in the Ashes at all this summer.
It wasn't one that we thought, this is going to be terrible. But equally, he's just had symptoms that have lasted a long time. Get himself right, play some club cricket, whether that's before Christmas or after.
Andrew McCormack, 7 News.
North Melbourne's bumper week of signings has continued. Chief football reporter Tom Brown has the details. And Tom, Roosie sticking around.
Team, the Kangaroos have officially extended Paul Roos for another year next year in his leadership and mentoring role. Now, Roos and the Kangaroo boss, Ben Amafio, signed off on the deal officially this week. Roos is currently in Hawaii, where he spends the Australian summer as per normal. He's actually selling his main house here in Melbourne, but Roosie's assured me via text today that he will be back for this role next season. Now, on concussion tonight, we know Daniel Venables is pushing for up to $6 million with his career now unfortunately over. But details on an important meeting tonight. His dad, Peter, met with the AFL on Monday. Peter wants all the draftees like Daniel to be scanned before the start of their career. That way you can identify any damage in advance. The AFL's looking at that scenario and option. And just finally, unless a Godfather offer comes along, sources say the Giants will keep their coveted draft pick too. Leon Cameron is super keen on Finn Callaghan. He's a bit like Bontempelli, I'm told. There's a week to go, but the indicative top 3, Jason Horne-Francis, Callaghan to the Giants and Mac Andrews to the Suns. There's a week to play out before next week's draft, Tim.
Thanks, Tom. Not much will ever top winning a premiership, according to Demons skipper Max Gawn. That's even after welcoming his first child, George, with wife Jessica 3 weeks ago.
People tell me that the newborn's better than the flag. And depends who's watching. Hopefully Jess isn't watching, but I think the flag wins. I know Jess is going to pick newborn, but she didn't play in the flag, so.
Good luck with that one, Max. The Demons star also tried his luck on the basketball court against United guard Chris Goulding. The Socceroos are slipping into dangerous territory in their quest to reach next year's World Cup in Qatar. Mitch Duke put the Aussies in front in this morning's clash with China, but the good work was undone when VAR intervened to award a handball penalty against James Jego, allowing China to escape with a 1-1 draw.
Until the penalty, there was pretty much only one team in the game, and that penalty gave them energy.
The Socceroos are now third in their group with 4 games to go. Only the top 2 teams secure automatic qualification. Matilda's captain Sam Kerr has extended her contract with English giant Chelsea until the end of 2024. The deal is worth more than $600,000 a season. Kerr has scored 39 goals in 56 games. Steph Curry was at his scintillating best from long range, draining 9 three-pointers on his way to 37 points in Golden State's win over Patty Mills and the Brooklyn Nets. Drip, drip. That's Stephen Curry. Incredibly, Curry is just 65 now behind all-time leader Ray Allen. Do you like those three-pointers, Mitch?
I love the three-pointers, Tim. They're fantastic. Very exciting. Who gets the nod at number 5 in the first test, do you think? Usman Khawaja or Travis Head?
Gabba, I think Khawaja.
Common sense prevails. Thank you very much indeed.
Not always.
Tim. Jane is next with the forecast. Jane, it warms up tomorrow.
Mitch, it does indeed, but it comes with gusty winds and the risk of a thunderstorm. The full details are next.
Denzel Washington and the Mandalorian's Pedro Pascal. The Equalizer 2, tonight on Mate.
Christmas. Share. Show you care, no matter where. Green Impress. Less stress, more time. Aussie ham, sublime. Christmas this year, make sure none go without. And when Santa's about, leave something out. Let's all make it special, happy and bright. Merry Christmas to all, and to all, a good night. That's today's fresh food, people.
Hey, mate. Nice trip.
That's Target.
Every code has stories to tell. Stories that run deep. Stories that show us who we are and what we could be. Unlock them with Code. Codesports.com.au.
You can give a child some joy. You can light up the moon.
If you're like me and lead a busy life, having your weekday meal sorted by U-Foods can be life-changing.
Their convenient 2-minute heat and eat meals are fresh, delicious, the next day delivery straight to your door.
It's healthy eating made easy.
With all sorts of style, tech and safety, the Honda HR-V has something for everyone. Whoever you are, you'll pay the same price wherever you go, thanks to the new Honda Price Promise. The Honda HR-V, joy for all sorts.
To help paramedics save lives, save 000 calls for emergencies.
If you have a minor injury or feel unwell, you can go to your local GP.
If you just have a health concern, you can always drop in and ask a pharmacist.
And there's Nurse on Call for some immediate expert advice 24/7.
So save us for emergencies.
And come to us for everything else.
Authorised by the Victorian Government, Melbourne.
I'm asking, will you marry me?
Chloe is my daughter, and there is nothing you can do about it.
If this is a joke, it's not funny.
Answer me!
Season final week of Home and Away next week on 7.
I think it's time to put Australia on the UFO map.
You think there was a cover-up?
They didn't want this story to get out.
Breaking new developments in the UFO phenomenon.
There was such pressure applied to some of the witnesses to keep the story under wraps.
The mystery of just what that object was. The stunning new revelations.
There was a cover-up.
There's no doubt about that.
Don't miss this eye-opening 7 News Spotlight major investigation. Secrets of the UFOs at the special time, Thursday 8:30 on 7.
Hello again. Our weather's going from cold and grey to warm and windy. After 5 days in a row of 15 or even less, today rose up to 18 just a couple of minutes ago. It is a few degrees higher away from the bay. We reached 20 in Watsonia and Scoresby, 21 in Yarra Glen. There were areas of cloud over Melbourne and southern Victoria that cleared out during the morning. Otherwise sunny out there and amongst sheets of high cloud coming in from the west. Temperatures are up away from the coast. High pressure is moving to our east today as the next low approaches. So we're heading into the warmer part of the weather pattern. The isobars, these lines in through here, squeeze together tomorrow. So winds are increasing and they may reach damaging strengths along the ranges on Thursday afternoon. With that comes increasing fire danger in the west. The Mallee is under total fire ban. That is the first one of the season. La Nina brings a wet summer overall, but we still get hot and windy days where the fire danger spikes. There's less prolonged bushfires, but all that growth from the rain leads to an increase in grass and crop fire. There is some wet weather tomorrow and on Friday, but no heavy falls. Instead, thunderstorms could bring dry lightning. And with increased wind, pollen and that storm risk, western parts of the state have a moderate chance of thunderstorm asthma tomorrow. Do note that none of these concerns include Melbourne. Fire danger low. There are no damaging winds there. Around the nation tomorrow, mostly dry in Brisbane, and over in Perth there's a slight risk of a shower or storm. Warm and mostly sunny in Sydney, warm and windy in Adelaide. To Victoria, calm in Gippsland at first with fog. Generally dry, but the blue you see there shows the chance of showers and thunderstorms. The rain is not heavy, generally a light spit, but the storms could bring lightning and gusty winds. Around all of that, it is warm. Temperatures are spiking before a cool change comes through with that trough. Closer in, temperatures jump up in strong north winds. It is dry all morning, then generally dry. Local light showers or a gusty thunderstorm. That clears out on a warm evening. So the city jumps to 25. In the afternoon, there's the risk of a light shower or gusty storm. So it should be dry for much of the time tomorrow. Now the evening does remain warm, 21 and 20, ahead of a cool change coming around midnight. So to the 8-day outlook, that does leave us cool again on Friday. We've got light showers in the morning. They'll clear to a dry afternoon and a dry Friday night. But take the jacket as it is cool out there. Not the cold of the last couple of days, but cool this time. On Saturday, generally dry during the day. We've got the chance of showers at night. And Sunday is looking very interesting. As it stands now, half the weather models have no heavy falls over Melbourne. They're in eastern Victoria, but the other half do still have them here. This is a changing process. I'll give you more tomorrow. Then after that, about 20 each day, the slight chance of showers. Warm and windy tomorrow. It jumps up to 25. There is the chance of a light shower or even a gusty thunderstorm, but not much rain tomorrow, Mitch.
And La Nina's hanging around for a little longer.
Oh, she is here for the rest of summer.
OK, thank you very much indeed, Jane. Now to the Melbourne Fashion Festival, and Estelle Griepink is at the Sea Life Aquarium this evening, and Estelle, tonight's shows are going underwater.
Well, Mitch, it's not often that a fashion show has to compete between the backdrop and the models, but that's exactly what's happened here because of the incredible sea life here at Sea Life Melbourne Aquarium. Now, the people who run Melbourne Fashion Week have gone to an effort to hold their shows at unique city locations, and tonight's choice certainly doesn't disappoint. Doing a full circuit of these corridors takes a full 4 minutes, so there's plenty of time for attendees to see designs from labels like Season.
I think it's good. I think it really helps people to see the city in a different way. Otherwise, you come here, I came here with my kid a lot, but I've never been here in this kind of setting, so it's really nice. And I think all the other spaces are being showcased that way. I think it's very unique for Melbourne to do this. And every year it's a big surprise and they keep doing different new spaces that you don't even know about.
And Mitch, I think this location has been a hit. A lot of people still around taking selfies by the aquarium. There are another 4 days of Melbourne Fashion Week to go, and some of the unusual locations to come are the Rialto and the MCG underground car park. Mitch?
Estelle Griepink at the aquarium, thank you. And here's what's on Sunrise tomorrow.